Okay, we are recording. So I'll do these kind of to give an overview of the course, do little introductions. This particular section is very small. I think there are 6 other students in this section. So well, I'm going to start. I'll give you just a little bit of background if you haven't read it in any of the postings yet. I'm obviously the professor for assessment strategies. I've been with ACE about almost 3.5 years. So I've taught a variety of courses. I am currently the executive director of field relations at the Ohio Department of Education. Prior to that, I was a school superintendent 6 years. Are you from Ohio? Where are you from?
I'm from Indiana now.
Okay.
I've taught in Texas and Illinois and Indiana. So
Okay, very good. So I won't give you the topography of Ohio, but I was a superintendent for 6 years of where I live, the district that I live in. I was also employed there for 15 years. I was director of college and career readiness, and middle school principal for 5 years, a high school assistant for 5 years, a high school counselor for 4. And then I taught for 8 years, variety of subjects in Cleveland city schools and in a district outside of Cleveland, and started my career in Florida. So, you know, the work you're doing now, I've done a lot of the work in the field, and part of my current role at the Department of Education is to kind of, you know, help and provide support and resources for people that are still doing the work. So hopefully I'll be able to bring some perspective to this course. And so is this the 3rd course that you're in? The 3rd?
yeah, I have another master's from ACE.
Oh,
my
okay.
2nd round. So yeah, the 3rd one for this one.
Good for you. Okay. So I thought what I'd do is just kind of give you an overview. Obviously, having different professors, potentially different expectations. So I like to talk through the overview. So I am going to share my screen and talk through. Tell me if you can see. Can you see the assessment strategies screen? Okay, good.
Yep.
So, and of course, we're recording this, and everyone else will get to see it. So, I mean, you get the one-on-one here. So I guess bonus for you. So let me just kind of start with kind of an overview. So when you get to the home screen, this is my view. Your view might look slightly different, but when you go to the instructor studio, this is for anyone in the class, and I just want to make sure in terms of communication that you use the Canvas inbox here to communicate. I get alerted through Canvas when something comes through, and I do my very best to respond as quickly as I can. Especially given that we're in 5-week courses. You can always shoot me an email through my ACE email account. I do get those emails that come through Canvas also end up in that email box. And then I've provided my cell. Sometimes folks find themselves in a bind and need to get a hold of me, and email just isn't the quickest way. And so if you text me, typically I'll respond fairly quickly. So all that to say, use the Canvas inbox first, and any of the other methods if you absolutely need to get a hold of me. So real quick, I would just encourage you, I'm not going to go through the course syllabus. They're typically the same for each class, but I do want to point out a couple of things specifically. The late policy in this course, and I'm not sure what your other courses look like, but there is a late policy. There's a 10% runoff for late assignments. And so I have those already queued up in the grade book. It will automatically deduct for each day that you're late. Now, I know that we all have busy lives. We all have children, work, other obligations. So if there is an extenuating circumstance, I don't mean you woke up late, that's not extenuating. Or you just forgot to hit the submit button, that's not an extenuating circumstance. But if you're ill, or you have, you know, something that happens that is absolutely going to keep you from getting something on time, if you communicate with me, there is some flexibility. I'm able to provide a little bit of flexibility if you need additional time. But because we are in a 5-week course, by Thursday, everything in terms of assignments must be submitted. So just as you are kind of mapping out, how you are going to manage the assignments, that you need to know that up front. And that's the late piece is automatic. The other piece I want to point out that is very important is this whole issue around plagiarism. So when you submit assignments, in your assignments, there's the Turnitin submission, and your Turnitin score, as you're looking at it, should be at about 20% or less. Now, I will tell you that there are times where you're going to look at your Turnitin score and say, I don't know why it's saying 40%, and I know I didn't plagiarize. Likely that's because we're using a template, or you might be referring to like state standards, and you're going to find those things in many other documents that may have gone through Turnitin. So I want to point out the plagiarism piece, because I have and will, if you're plagiarizing, you'll get reported back to administration that you plagiarized. So I just want you to be careful of the score. I do look at the score, and I do look at what you plug in. As long as you are citing your references, you should be in good shape. But if you are outright taking other folks' work and plugging it into your work, that's going to stand out in there, and that would be a flag for me. So I just want to point that out, that when you see the percentage, and most of us are in education are kind of type A's, and we want to do everything right and get everything correct. And so don't freak out if your percentage is higher than that 20%. I typically won't have you go back in and redo everything, but you should keep your eye on that and make sure you try to keep it as close to that 20% as possible. One thing that is very important, and this may be repetition if you've already kind of gone through this, but the calendar. If you look at the calendar is a very good guide in terms of when you have to have your work done. I would use the guide. Now, we always have individuals that are not on Eastern Standard Time that sometimes get confused. I'm not sure what the calendar times look like if you are in a different time zone, but what you'll see in the announcements, I pull right from the calendar in terms of due dates. So when it says due by Sunday at 2:59 a.m., well, typically that's going to be Saturday after midnight into the wee hours of that Sunday. So again, just as you're managing your work and how you're submitting and when you're submitting, just keep those time frames in mind and those dates in mind in the calendar. In the announcements, I've got a bunch already posted, but you'll see when we get to the first module, I'll typically post those announcements on Friday mornings early, and you'll notice the discussion board and the announcements about the assignment. They're somewhat repetitive, but I do that on purpose, because when you're reading it, and if you're reading the announcement, sometimes that repetition is good as you're rereading through the directions and determining how you want to approach your assignment. So there is some repetition in there. One thing I'll be able to do for you in each of those announcements on the assignments is to provide you with an exemplar. I have found that most students say, I'm not sure what you want. How do you want this set up? What should the headings look like? I'm going to point you to two things. One is the APA expectations document and video. I'll walk you right through exactly what I want to see in a paper submission, as well as in the announcement itself. When you look at that exemplar, of course, do not use that work as your own work, but use that as a guide. And that should help you get through the course. So make sure you look at those announcements, they're important. And then I want to talk about grading. So this is how I grade. I'm not sure how other professors may have done this for you, but I do this in 3 ways. So, well, let's first talk about discussion boards. That's fairly straightforward. I will make some commentary, general commentary about what you've posted, and I'll look to see that you've responded to 2 of your classmates. That's part of the rubric, part of the requirement. Got to make sure that you do that in the discussion boards. In the actual paper submissions, there's a rubric of which I will click into the points for the rubric. And if there are points missing in the rubric itself, I'll be able to make some commentary, like you didn't have an introduction. Please make sure for future submissions you have that introductory paragraph. Certainly in the last portion of the rubric around APA, I'll talk a little bit more in depth about APA here in a minute. I'll typically have to make comments about APA. So I'll do that in the rubric. I also will highlight areas in your paper where I think you need some feedback. And so that covers kind of the technical pieces, and then the overall commentary, I'll generally provide you with some comments and or feedback specific to the content of the paper. So that when you are looking through your paper or through that rubric, you say, you didn't really tell me anything, I'll generally make those comments in the comment box. So you will see something for every submission. So you are able to see, and in the announcement where it says grading and feedback, there's a video, and there's also a link to how to view the comments on the paper, how to look at the rubric, and how to see the overall. So I would encourage you to take a look at that as well. And then I think the last thing I want to point out that I think is very important, and I encourage everyone to do, is the getting to know you chat. I've already posted in there. And so I would encourage each of you to do the same and to respond to your classmates. And once you do, I'll also provide a response to what you've put into the getting to know you. So this isn't a graded item, but it is a good way for you and for me to get to know who's in the class and where you're from and what you're thinking and what your experiences have been. So I encourage you to do that. And are you able to see that, or did I click out of something that you're unable to see?
I can see what you're doing.
Okay, good.
Yep.
I don't think I have anything else specific that I want to go to, so I'm going to stop. And Katie, you might have questions or some things that have cropped up for you. And
I think I'm good. It's pretty straightforward. Oh, there is the one I noticed, like the peer review assignment.
yes.
So is that where you assign us a paper and we have to give feedback to each other on it?
So this is in the discussion. And you will see in the discussion, I won't assign who is with who, but you'll just need to follow the direction on that post.
Okay, it's just a discussion.
Yeah, so this is just part of the
Okay.
discussion board.
Perfect.
And you'll respond to that table of specifications.
Okay, perfect.
And when we get to module 3, I'll provide an exemplar for what the TOS looks like, and you'll be able to kind of get a feel for that. But in this one, it's more about your interaction with 2 or more of your classmates about
Sure.
their table of
Great.
specs. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that was my only question.
Okay. And I'm going to stop sharing. And given that there is nobody else on but the 2 of us, why don't you just
Yeah, it's a small
Hey.
class. I've never had a class so small.
Yeah, this is great. So why don't you just give me an overview? Tell me, I know you're from Indiana, but what is your position, what role, what do you do, what are you seeking to do?
I'm currently teaching 5th grade at a Catholic school in South Bend, Indiana. This is my 15th year teaching. I did Teach for America right out of college. So I taught in Texas for a few years. Then I taught in Northwest Indiana at a charter school for 4 years. And then I taught in Illinois for 6 years, 3rd grade. And I grew up in South Bend. So now I'm back home, came back during COVID. So I have my master's in educational technology, but it just seemed like the perfect time to do this because the school I'm at is like, I have a really great principal I'm working with. So I thought that it would be a good time to get this checked off my list.
Good. And so are you aspiring to be a school leader, a building
Yeah.
principal?
Yeah, I would like to do that. I think I would like to do some time as an administrator and then possibly get into like policy and law for education.
Yeah.
So,
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think right now, just having a pipeline, and I'm sure you know this, it's all over the country where there's a shortage of
mhm,
educators, teachers specifically, and if there's a shortage of teachers, there's a shortage of leaders, and so we need leadership to kind of forge into the future. And so, if that's what you're aspiring to be, stick with it, because
Yeah,
there's
thanks.
definitely a need, and there
Mhm.
certainly will be positions.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah,
no,
there are right now. It's
there
crazy.
there are. I can
Uh-huh.
tell you that in Ohio, there are 58 brand new superintendents starting this fall.
It's crazy.
And we have 610 public school districts.
Wow.
It's
That's
almost,
a lot.
it's a big chunk. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
I am not going to keep us any longer than we need to be. So I will stop recording, and